Hi there. Welcome back to Renergy, into the House of Chi with Dr. B. I am so grateful to be here again to continue our conversation from the last episode. So you understand kind of what I'm doing. And if you're not sure, just go back and see the last episode that was done. But I'm going to jump right in because I got a little bit of information that I want to share with you to help you kind of better understand of who I am and what I'm doing. This podcast and what I'm going to share is really important for my practitioners, my cohorts, the people who I work alongside in rehab every day. But it is also something to give to my clients as well. So those who are out here in the community and want to know more about what I'm doing, this is kind of the premise of what's going on underneath. So I want to start today with sharing one of our books that we're going to be using in classical Chinese medicine school, in which I'm enrolled, as we talked about in the last episode. It's called Tao Te Ching. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about Tao Te Ching, and then I'm going to share about how I help the patient to tap into himself and to kind of move into a different direction, which is kind of a connection we're going to see here with Tao Te Ching, with Lao Tzu and the ox. So, according to traditional accounts, I've made some notes here. So, if you see me looking, that's what I'm looking at, okay? That Lao's worked as a court archivist or a librarian, I guess you would say, for the Zhou dynasty. He spent his life keeping the royal records, and in some versions, may have even been a teacher or acquaintance of Confucius. As he grew old, Lao Tzu became very disillusioned. So here's your correlation to today. If you're feeling a bit disillusioned, he got it even back then. So we get it now. So he watched the Zhou dynasty decay. There was corruption. There was moral decline, a society that was drifting further from the natural order that he believed in. We can see that today in many respects, in healthcare in particular. Rather than stay and try to fix a crumbling system, he decided to leave civilization behind entirely. Okay. So he mounted a water buffalo. Some people say it was a black ox or a buffalo. And he rode west toward the frontier, intending to disappear into the wilderness, leaving the world of politics and society for good. How often have we not had that pass our mind sometimes, you know? So he mounted up, let's see. So then he reached what they would call the Hanggu Pass, which is the mountain gate marking the border of Zhou territory. The pass's gatekeeper, a man named Yin Ji, sometimes called the guardian of the pass, recognized that this was no ordinary traveler. Some versions say Yin Ji had seen mystical signs like purple clouds foretelling a sage's arrival. So he kind of connected this with Lao Tzu. Okay. And so Yin Ji refused to let Lao Tzu pass into the wilderness and just vanish without leaving something behind. He begged the old master to write down his wisdom first so it wouldn't be lost. So Lao Tzu agreed. He sat down at this gate pass, and in one sitting, they say he wrote out roughly 5,000 characters, the text that became known as the Tao Te Ching, Taoteching. Once he finished it, he handed the manuscript to Yin Ji. He rode through the pass on his ox and disappeared into the west. He was never seen again. No death is recorded, no grave, no further story. He just simply rides off the page of history. Why does this matter? Because he leaves not out of ambition, but out of a quiet withdrawal, the opposite of pressing and pushing. He almost doesn't write anything at all, consistent with the text's own opening line that says, the Tao, T-A-O, that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Now, y'all chew on that for a minute. He vanishes rather than seeking recognition or a legacy. an image of a sage who acts without attachment to being remembered. Okay? So it's more of a origin or a myth of a book about letting go, effortlessness, and not forcing outcomes. Supposedly written by a man in the act of walking away from everything, including his own name. So oftentimes people will, say to me things like, why are you going back to classical Chinese medicine school? As if I'm walking away from something. But my thought and my embodiment and where that lands with me is I'm not walking away from anything. I'm just walking towards something. Okay. But I do understand his statement that he makes when he's walking away from a crumbling system. So rather than try to rebuild a system that continues to crumble, he chooses to go on. And so it would be more important to go on and build something new and use your energies to build and create something new than to continue to build on a system that continues to crumble. Okay. So hold on to that as we are going to go through this. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you was I talked to you about one of my clients that I work with, who was a male, and he was very emotional during one of our sessions. And I want to share with you just one thing that I did for him. So we had been doing our exercises and everything. And right at the end, I decided to take him through an exercise that would help him to tap into his own awareness and his own knowing. So literally all I did, very simple, you would consider it like Qigong. It's just moving energy. But what the difference is, let me move this over just a little bit. The difference is that you teach them to do it, and you teach them to do, the difference is between it and traditional therapy is the movement is very slow and purposeful and mindful. So just as he's sitting in the chair and he takes his hands, he turns them upward like this. So from his lap, he's going to move his hands up through the space in which he is sitting, turn them over, and he's going to pull them back down with the same intention of a deep breath in as he's like lifting the wind almost and bringing the wind back down. It's like a push and a pull, but his breath ends up attaching himself to his action. And after we've done about 5 of those, on the last one, as he comes up and he breathes out, he draws it in to the heart and into the lower belly, below the belly button. And then he sits in that with the eyes closed and takes a normal breath and releases. And he does it again. And each breath goes deeper and deeper and deeper within. And his eyes filled with tears as he tapped into a knowing that he did not really realize was in there. And it allowed him, with the use of his breath and his diaphragmatic breathing and the movement with slow motions, with control and intention and awareness, to tap into its own healing. And it tapped into more than just a physical healing. It tapped into a spiritual healing. It tapped into an emotional healing. It became a holistic approach to him. And it wasn't just a physical approach to what he was doing. And that allowed him to then release something that he had been suppressing within him, his body, that he didn't even realize was there. And afterwards, we both looked at each other and smiled. And I said, "Do you feel that?" And he said, "Yes." And he just smiled because when he released that, that is part of that trauma-informed therapy that we must consider when we're working with our patients. Because most of these patients have chronic conditions and they have been holding on and suppressing much within their bodies. And unless we help them to clear those out of their bodies, there is no room within the body to allow something new to come in to support them in their healing and their rehabilitation. Okay? And it was just that simple.